and welcome back to another episode of Life-Changing Challengers. I am extremely excited to talk to Mr. Belldon Colme today. He is an author, he's a health coach, he's a speaker, and he has a journey that is probably pretty close to a lot of other journeys out there, but he had an uncommon way of getting over it, just like most of the other episodes that we've had so far. So, Belldon, how are you today?
Fantastic, Brad, and thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh, no, I am very honored to have you on the show. So, as I ask every single one of them, Belldon, can you tell us a little bit about your childhood, like where you grew up and what was the compliment of your family, and what was it like to be Belldon as a kid?
That's funny because when you were prepping me for this, you said maybe there's other people out there like you that'll connect. And my first thought was, oh my God, help their mom if there is. When I was growing up, daredevils were a thing. And the daredevil of the time was Evel Knievel. If you remember back to good old Evel. Evel was my God. So much so that by the time I was 7 years old, that was my alter ego. I was Evel Knievel. And back in those days, I lived out in the country. We didn't buy bicycles. We went and we got scraps out of dumpsters and we put the parts and pieces together into whatever contraption we came up with in our head. And every thought I had when I would put a bike together was, is this going to get me higher? Is this going to get me farther? Because I would jump those things like crazy. And it was my alter ego, if you will. I'm the only boy in a family of 9. And that means, if you do the math, I've got 6 sisters. I grew up in a house with 1 bathroom. I have no idea what it looked like on the inside, but I can give you details about the current berry bush that was my bathroom home out there. And this was life growing up, right? And it was back in the days when, as long as you were home for dinner, nobody really worried where you are. So my day was building ramps, finding things that I could jump over, to using rocks as ramps, and doing Evel Knievel, to the point where my cousin and I would even go so far as to be Evel Knievel going home at the end of the day with our wives and family, and what would Evel do in this environment. It was a lot of fun, but it also set me up for a lot of success, both early on and more recently, because it gave me a different mindset. It gave me a mindset of, if you want to do it, you're not afraid of it. You just go do it and you figure it out. And if it doesn't work the first time, like Caesar's Palace, you do it again and you figure out how to make it work. So it gave me a really unique perspective. My childhood was also marked by one other thing, though, and it's important to what you're going to talk to me about as we go through this. And that's that home life changed when I was in that just immediate pre-10 and post-10 area. And by that, things got expensive. We lived on 10 acres that my dad paid $50 a month for when I was a kid. And things started becoming expensive. The world started changing through there. And that's the period of time in late 70s into the early 80s when more and more moms entered the workplace. And I'm not trying to make a political statement about that. That's not the point. What the point is that the way we ate changed. The way we ate changed a lot. And instead of having a garden in the backyard that mom would pull stuff out of and can and put up for the winter and all the things that we did when I was little, we started having TV dinners, if you remember those things. You could even
Hungry Man.
Gray, you remember those?
Yeah.
And for the first time, not only were we eating junk food on a regular basis, but we had all the accoutrements to very easily go eat junk food in front of the TV. And so many things changed right then. And it was an important defining part of my youth, because that is when I started gaining weight. That's when I started getting a body I wasn't really proud of anymore and always wanting to wear my shirt and not get into the pool. That's when I started watching people in my class start to grow, until by the time I graduated high school, a significant portion of my high school class was overweight. By the time I graduated college, we were obese. So my childhood was amazing in so many ways, but also marked by a very significant change in what was going on in the world.
I can imagine. So before your mom entered the workplace, did you have like dinner time with you and 6 girls and mom and dad at the table?
Yes.
Oh my God, that must have been a heck of a table.
Oh, man. And when they tell you that if women live together, they all line up, and yet that's absolutely the God's truth. I can attest to that. And there were days when my dad would say, "You come, we're going fishing. We'll come back in 3 days."
Yeah. I can't even imagine. I'm an only child, so I literally cannot imagine. But that just must have been a heck of a thing to be around. Oh, wow. I just can't even imagine it. But yeah, I could see how that is. It's like, yeah, go outside and play. Hey, evil, go out and jump on some ramps because you don't want to be in here.
Come back.
Oh, wow. So when your mom went into the workforce, what did she do?
So my mom went into sewing machine sales. My mom was a very good seamstress. It was something that she enjoyed, and it was easy for her to do and easy to break into. So she got into that, and that also meant odd hours. Anytime you're in sales, you're not 9 to 5, especially if you're the new kid on the block, right? So when she went into this, it meant odd hours. It meant we came home from school, and we were the early versions of latchkey kids coming home, finding the key under the potted plant, coming in. A lot of times there was a note that said, "Here's where to find dinner. Here's what dinner is." And it was, again, something convenient. I don't believe for a minute that moms knew back then what this new kind of food was going to do to the health of our nation. I don't believe it for a second. At the time, it was convenience that mattered. And so we'd come home and we'd have something that we could pull out of the freezer. Not every night, don't get me wrong. My mom still tried to be home when she could. My dad got home on the mid-evening. But yeah, it was just a change.
Yeah, I hear that. My mother was an executive secretary, so she kept regular hours, but then she went back to school and everything else. So I did find later on that while she used to cook every night, that was the thing. Got up, made me breakfast, went to work, came home, made dinner, then did the dishes, and that was that. And then she went back to school. And it was just like you had mentioned. Now all of a sudden, 3-4 days a week, it was all right. We're just going to stop at McDonald's on the way home. And of course, at the time, I was all for it. I'm like, yeah. And then, right, exactly. Give me the Happy Meal. Give me the toy. I'm good to go. And then it just became monotonous, and to the point where even as a kid, I did not want McDonald's anymore. I wanted mom to cook. So I get it. So you had this wonderful childhood, and then you got to be preteen. You started realizing that you were growing a little bit. You started seeing themselves going through that. And then you said you went to school. Where did you go to school? University.
Yeah, my first tour through university was Central Washington in the Upper Yakima Valley, and studied electronics technology of all things. Got out and worked it for about a year. Hated it. I was doing the same thing every day. Didn't like it at all. So, like so many people, I abandoned the degree and I went into home building and got into home building as a customer service agent. Which, by the way, if you're going to do something new, customer service is the place to start because you learn immediately everything that's wrong with the industry, everything that everybody does wrong ahead of you. So that when you move up through the ranks, hopefully you don't forget that and you can affect change along the way. But I loved construction. I loved everything about it. So I stayed in that field and I started growing until I created my own construction company. And I say created as opposed to started on my own. I say created because all the way through, I was watching this weird dichotomy in construction where either you bought a cookie cutter house at a reasonable price. Yes, once upon a time, houses were a reasonable price. I know we don't see that anymore.
Yeah, right.
But you could buy a cookie cutter house at a reasonable price, or you could buy a house made just the way you want it, and you're going to pay through the nose for it. It would be ridiculously expensive. And as I was going through, I never understood why there was no middle ground. Why you couldn't build a custom home at a near production home price if you got that buyer to buy into the idea of making all their decisions up front, letting you build the house without any change orders. Then they could get a custom or a near custom home at a price that wasn't very far above production. So that's how I built my company. And it introduced me to something that still serves me to this day. And that's that I really love helping people go through a difficult process in a simple way. And sitting down and not just leaving them bewildered and wondering what to do, but walk them through the process in a simple to understand way so that they understood we need to do these things now. Then we're going to put it in your hands. We're going to let you do what you do. We're going to come back and we're going to walk into a home unlike anybody else's that's uniquely ours, and to walk them through all the ins and outs of doing that. I love helping people in that way and making complex things really simple, and that serves me right to this day.
That's amazing. And well, through a long process, I ended up like what you, I ended up in IT as a way to make money, basically. And and I wasn't a coder. I was an IT project program manager, still am to a point. And that's exactly what my job was. I needed to take what the developers said, what the network LAN administrators said, and all that, and then be able to transpose that to talk to the execs and pitch that in a way that would spell money. But that was the thing. So I get it. I totally get it. And because that was basically my job. I need to dumb down what the developers said so that the execs could understand and make a decision. So the other way around was easy. Back to the developers, that was simple. But back to the execs was a whole different story. So
Isn't it strange? Totally. Isn't it strange that we never have to dumb down what the execs say? It just already starts there.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So, oh, wow. All right. So how long did you end up, do you still have your company?
So no, I don't. And things happened for me, the good, bad, and the ugly, all happened at a juncture of time right before 2008. So my health, which I'll talk about in just a second, started coming unraveled in 2004 through 2006. And I was changing everything about what I want to do in this world, the mark I want to make, how I want to help people. So when the economy in 2008 flipped and small builders were going out of business right, left, and upside down because of the moratorium on building loans, when that happened, it was just a really good time for me to switch and to start doing what I do today and helping people with my health. But the truth is, my business was all but gone before that, because in 2004, I had my first of 3 heart attacks. My entire health scene fell apart to where I wasn't even able to keep up the business and keep working anymore. So the switch, the timing did what the timing did, right?
Right.
But in 2004, I'd been working in construction for 25 years, just shy of 25 years. And I loved it. I loved everything about it. But the truth of the matter is, like so many businesses, there's a food culture in construction. Like there's a food culture in so many businesses. And when you're doing residential construction, you do contracts at beer 30 somewhere. You do the next day's schedules around the taco truck at lunchtime. If you're somebody in the company other than just a worker bee, you're probably going to be working there until 6:30, 7:30 every night. So you're eating whatever you can find conveniently on the way home. And that's the life you live, and you don't give it a second thought. That's just the way it is. And you don't give it a second thought, even though you're watching things happen in your body, or at least I was, that I didn't like. I watched myself get larger and larger. Even worse than that, I felt myself getting more and more lethargic until when they talk about power through, I really had to power through a day. It was all I could do to get through a day. And then I get home and my kids would want my attention, and I didn't have anything left. Yeah. So my family was suffering for it. And this all came to a culmination one fine day in 2004 when I woke up on my kitchen floor and had no idea where I was. I was looking at the toe kick underneath the toe kick in the kitchen cabinets. I didn't immediately know where I was when I woke up. I could hear things happening, but I couldn't hear words. I couldn't make out who people were. I was covered with wires and I didn't know why. I was wet and I didn't know why. This was the funniest thing because I'm sitting there in the midst of all of this, and as opposed to being afraid of what's going on, my biggest fear was that I might have peed myself and there were people poking and prodding me. I didn't want to think I might have peed myself. Now, just so you know, it was a coffee carafe that broke when I fell. Okay, so we're okay here. But it was funny later when I'm thinking this was my fear in my state of confusion. But as I started coming to more and more, I realized that I'm surrounded by paramedics. They're putting me on a gurney. I'm all wired up to EKG machines and everything that they're doing to monitor me. And I'm on the way to the hospital. That was my first heart attack. And I had two that followed that. And on the one hand, it was a wake-up call for me. But on the other hand, it wasn't like I wasn't trying to do anything to prevent that, right? I was doing the diets. I was doing the gym. I was doing the stuff. And I was still getting bigger and bigger. And clearly, I was getting sicker and sicker too. I was 39 years old when this happened. So into the hospital, go ahead. I can see a question.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying. So, all right, let's step back here. So for a minute before the heart attack, because you just said that you were trying to prevent it. At what point before then did you decide that, hey, I don't like when I look in the mirror. I need to do something about it. And what was that? What were those first steps?
So I want to be really clear about this, because how I felt is important, because it's how I've discovered almost everybody feels, right? I wasn't overtly worried about it. My blood pressure was high. I got drugs for that. I got drugs to bring my blood pressure. I'm fine. My doctor told me I'm fine. I got the drugs, right? My cholesterol was high. I got the drugs for that. So although I was being kept in the normal range artificially, that wasn't the way my brain was working. The way my brain was working was my doctor said, you're good, I'm good. So I've got these things I don't like. I was 105 pounds overweight at the time. I didn't like being 105 pounds overweight. It meant I'd wake up in the middle of the night with acid reflux. Sometimes I was choking on to the point I thought I was maybe not going to make it through it, right? You wake up with a throat full of this stuff. I didn't like that. I didn't like the fact that I couldn't tie my shoes without really sucking my gut in and just holding my breath. I couldn't breathe while I was tying my shoes. Right? I didn't like how I looked. I didn't like all of these things, but I wasn't overtly afraid of anything. I should have been when I look back on it, but I wasn't. My doctor was telling me I was okay. So what I was working on was, I don't like looking like this. I don't like the fact that I don't have the mobility I want. I don't like the fact that I'm fatigued all the time. How do I fix these things? Which was entirely the wrong thing to be trying to fix, but that's what I was trying to fix, right? Fatigue, how I look, and I wanted more mobility. So when I say I was working on things and I wasn't doing nothing, I was trying to do things. That's what I was working on.
Okay.
But like almost everybody I've learned, with a heart attack right there on the horizon, never crossed my mind. It wasn't something that I thought about. I was on a show the other day and the host asked me, he's like, Belldon, if you could go back in time and do it again, and you're before that heart attack, and he did say, you don't know what you know today. All you knew was you could live a better life. Would you have done anything different? And I said, the sad truth is probably not, because we tend to not think about things like this until it's too late, which is why the message from people like me, the message is so important. Right. Think about it now, because I lived. That's because I'm Evil Knievel. Yeah. Not everybody can go off the ramp, break every bone in their body and live, right? I lived, but too many people don't. And by the time you wait till that long, it's just too late.
Yeah, I've brought people onto my roster just like that, but unfortunately it's come afterwards, just like you, right? And which is why I do what I do now. This is why we have this platform, you and I both. We have this platform so people can learn from our mistakes, learn from our clients' mistakes, and we learn as coaches that there's these things that work or what doesn't. What's the Western medicine that is essential and the Eastern medicine that will help, right? And that's how I do it, because it just seems like, right, to me, Western medicine is, let's talk about the symptom. Let's see if we can cure the symptom. Eastern medicine is holistically. We look at the whole body holistically, right?
I think it's important to notice, though, along with what you're saying, because that's absolutely true. But along with that, you hear a lot of dichotomy in conversation between the people who are, I'm going to do everything my doctor tells me, and the people that say, I don't trust anything my doctor tells me.
Right.
And we need to get more centered on that, because I'm alive today because of Western medicine and what those doctors were able to do when I went into the ER. Without that, I wouldn't have ever had the opportunity to learn how to heal my body in a better way. So Western medicine kept me alive, and we need what we're learning, and we need to continue learning in Western medicine. Child mortality is almost zero in our country because of Western medicine. Absolutely. But we also need to know where the limitations of it are and where we need to be taking responsibility to do for ourselves and to support our body in the way it needs to be supported to heal.
That's exactly the point. And I think one of those things is being present with your doctor. Work with your doctor. Make sure your doctor works with you, not for you. In other words, you mentioned cholesterol, and your doctor says, okay, well, your cholesterol's high. I got to put you on a statin. Okay, great, doc. I appreciate that you're going to put me on a statin to get my cholesterol down now. Now, can you help me learn what to do to get me off that statin? That statin is temporary. I want you to make it temporary. I want you to teach me, or where can I go to find the resources to get off the statin so I don't need to take it anymore? Great, we'll take care of it now. Same thing, lisinopril, high blood pressure. All right. Tell me how to get off of it. I do this with some of my clients when and this is something as small as orthotics, right? Because it's my belief as a coach, right? They go in, oh, I got this issue with my foot. I got plantar fasciitis. I went to the podiatrist, and he fit me for orthotics. And I'm like, you need to talk to the podiatrist. And you say, okay, what's going on with my foot? What can I do to strengthen the point where I don't need these orthotics? Because the orthotics is $400. You got to drop $400 every 6-7 months because they wear out, right? Because you're wearing them all the time. And I'm like, no.
Feel better, but they don't fix the problem, right?
It's a Band-Aid, right? And when we heal, we take the Band-Aid off.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing's got to be done here. And that's what I believe. Anyway, we can go on about that like forever. You and I could probably have conversations.
Yes, we could.
10 friggin' podcasts. But let's talk about, so you had the first heart attack, and you were already on blood pressure and cholesterol medicine at the time. So what did you make changes between the first and the second and third?
So there was an evolution of things as time went along. There was an evolution of my understanding of what was happening. Because when I went in the first time and I'm talking to my cardiologist and I got introduced 21 new medications, no lie, three, by the way, for the heart disease, 18 to counter the side effects of the 3. And so I've got this whole new handful of medications I got introduced to, but I also don't know any better. I'm a home builder. I'm not a doctor. So I really don't know better. And I take the medications, and he gave me an exercise program, very specific exercises to do. And he gave me the ratty excuse for diet. Nutrition isn't what doctors do. But he introduced me to a nutritionist and said, she's going to help you with what you need. So here I've got all my new medications. I've got my exercise plan. I've got my nutritionist to get my diet back on track. And this is what I know. This is my new rules. Now, I'm going to tell you, there are people, and I know, there are people who don't take these things seriously, don't take their medications the way they're supposed to, don't do the diet, I wasn't that person. I was 39 years old. I had a young family. I did not want to die. And if anything, I went over and above on doing the things that I needed to do in order to get my life back. And what I experienced was this. I lost about 40, 45 pounds. I needed to lose 105, but 40 or 45 wasn't nothing. It was progress.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. I didn't feel any better. I didn't get any of my energy back. The need for medications wasn't going down. My markers weren't changing much. My blood pressure and my cholesterol were still great, but they were before because of the drugs, right? But I wasn't improving in any other way than I was losing some pounds. And at about 40 or 45 pounds, that bottomed out. I just didn't lose any more after that. After the second heart attack, I was told some new things. One was, you're lucky you lived through the second one, especially that close to the first one. And don't have a third one because you're probably not going to live through that one. Right? Now, I'm evil frickin' Knievel. So, of course, I had to have a third one just to be a rebel and see if I could do it. Right? And I did. Yes. But the thing is, after that second one, I started realizing that what I was doing wasn't working. What I was doing wasn't making me better. And at this point, I've got a shelf life. I'm 39 years old. I'm looking at 40, and I'm being told I've got 5 to 10 years left if I'm a good boy and do everything I'm supposed to. And that ain't cool. That's not what I want. So there's one day I remember sitting and looking into my coffee cup on the couch, and the blackness of that coffee looked just like the black abyss of my life, if you know what I mean. And I'm sitting there staring into that thing, and I'm feeling just, I don't know the word. It's like desperate, discouraged, depressed, everything, every D word all shoved into one, right? And I'm sitting there on the couch wondering what on earth to do different than what I'm doing. And one thing came to me, and I don't know if this was the engineering of my background or what, but one thing came to me, and that's that we don't heal the body. We don't. Doctors don't heal your body. I can't heal your body. You can't heal your body. People who say they're a healer are a little bit inflated. And the reason I say that is because you go to the doctor when you break your arm. Evil Knievel did this 120 sometimes.
Right.
You go to the doctor because you break your arm. What does he do? He puts it straight. He puts a cast on it so it can't move. But does he heal that bone? No, not at all. That bone heals itself. And I started realizing as I'm sitting there staring into this cup, that's how we work. If you get the flu, the doctor's going to give you something to mitigate the symptoms so that you can rest. Well, what happens? Your own immune system goes to work and heals you of the flu. You get anything, and all a doctor does is mitigates the circumstance or the discomfort so that your body can heal itself. That's what medicine is all about. So if I could learn how my body worked and why it wasn't working, maybe there was something I could do to support it so that it could do that job faster, better, easier, successfully. Keep me alive would be good. And so I started diving down those rabbit holes. And some of this was classes in university, but I didn't have time to go and get a degree. I started diving down the rabbit holes, particularly of biochemistry and cellular biology, to see if I could learn how this works. And when I started discovering how this works, it took very little time to understand that nearly everything we've ever been told is complete and total BS. One of the first things that I learned was what metabolism is in the body. And I'd always been told, like everybody is, your metabolism is a fat-burning furnace. It burns calories. Okay. I got to get my metabolism working faster so that it burns fat more efficiently and it makes me healthier and thinner. But what I learned right away is that metabolism is two things, and neither one of them have to do with burning calories. And it's fascinating if you want to do some research. If you look up metabolism, you get 80 billion hits on the fat-burning furnace. If you look up these next two words, you actually get a really in-depth understanding of how your metabolism works. One of those words is catabolism. Catabolism. Catabolism is the destructive side of your metabolism. It takes things apart. And anabolism. This is the constructive or healing side of your metabolism that puts things together. And on a micro basis or a macro basis, you might think of your food digesting. Catabolism takes your food apart, and anabolism puts your food back together into the cells of your body. Now that right there, and I'll make the connection, but that right there almost made my jaw hit the ground, because nowhere in any of my education was I prepared for the idea that I'm made out of the food that I eat. That my metabolism's not burning it all for energy, it's taking it apart and reassembling it back into me. Now, part of that gets digested, goes to the liver, turns it into glucose, and that goes into my body for energy. But that's a part of my food. The mass amount of my food. And it's like kind of a facepalm moment. It's like, what do we think we're made out of, right? We've got all this mass and it's constantly replacing itself and rebuilding itself. Where does all that raw material come from? The law of conservation of matter says it has to come from somewhere, and it's not my sheets. So it has to be the food I eat. And when I learned that, it changed everything, because then I'm going back to the builder me.
Right.
If you give me a bunch of boards that are filled with bugs and mold, I am more than happy to throw them on a burn pile and burn them, and we'll grab some marshmallows and hot dogs and have a cookout.
Right.
But do you think I'm going to build a house out of them?
No.
No way. And yet here I'm taking all of this garbage food, stuff that belongs on a burn pile somewhere, and I am building the house of my body out of garbage. And all this time, my body's doing the best it can with what I'm giving it. But I'm not giving it what it needs to do the job. So I started turning this around right away. And that wasn't the only thing I learned. When I learned what energy is and how energy works and what ATP is, adenosine triphosphate, and the fact that this is the energy not just of me, but of every living thing in the universe. This is the energy of amoebas. It's the energy of mold. It's the, right? And when I started learning how this is and how it works and how it is completely not dependent upon my food, and just more and more as I went down the learning of all of this, I realized I can support this. And I can support it by recognizing what we are. If I said, Brad, everything happening inside of here is a series of chemical reactions and responses, true or false?
Yeah, it's true.
True. And if I recognized that and I lived by that, I had a good chance of being able to get my life back. Now, chemistry can seem really complicated. When I was in construction, I learned right away that civil engineers, I'm pretty sure that this whole entire degree path was made to support people who flunked out of organic chemistry. Organic chemistry is freaking hard. But it really comes down to three things. Chemistry is these three rules. And if we just think about this, we can change our life. Number one, you have to get the right things in the beaker to get the reaction that you want. Makes sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we have to put the right food in our body, the right drink in our body to get the reactions that we want. The second law of chemistry is we have to keep the wrong things out of the beaker because they pollute the reaction and we're not going to get the reaction that we want. Now, that might seem like a no-brainer when you're looking at yourself as chemistry. But that is the most flouted law of chemistry in all of what we call nutrition today. We're told to put the wrong stuff in the beaker all the time. You put the right stuff in the beaker Sunday through Friday, and on Saturday you can have a cheat day and put whatever in the beaker you want. Well, that's not how chemistry works, is it?
Right.
Right? Another great law is the law of gravity. Would you just walk off the edge of the Grand Canyon on Saturday because it's your cheat day and you're going to float?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
and we tell ourselves, give yourself grace. And it's funny that we don't say, give yourself grace about that thing that you already ate. We futurecast this. Give yourself grace. You're not perfect. You are going to eat things that you shouldn't. And what are you telling yourself? You're not run by physical laws. You can put stuff in your beaker and you'll be okay, even if it's the wrong stuff, right? We have all kinds of ways that we give ourselves permission to make the reactions in that beaker fail. And the third law of chemistry is that the recipe matters. We have to get the right balance of things, right? If you make a cake and you're dyslexic today and you put all the right things in the cake and none of the wrong things, but your dyslexia makes you put in 2.5 cups of salt and a teaspoon of sugar, what's going to happen to that cake? The recipe matters. In chemistry, the balance matters. So we have to get the right thing in. And we get chemistry in our body through the things we eat and drink and the things that we put on our skin, but that's a different conversation. The things that we eat and drink. We need to eat and drink the right things. We need to not eat and drink the wrong things, and we need to get the right balance. And when I started doing that, Brad, I'd already had my third heart attack. Thank God I lived through it. But when I started doing this, I was able to reverse my type 2 diabetes in 3.5 months. I was able to lose 105 pounds in 5.5 months, and I've never gained it back. And I was able to totally reverse heart disease in 2 years. And when I went into my cardiologist for my last medication, this was funny. I loved this day because he told me, he said, Belldon, I don't want to take you off this drug because I don't trust what you did. What did I do? I ate the wrong things. I ate the right things. I didn't eat the wrong things. I got the right balance, right? And he's like, I don't trust what you did. And I said, okay, let's look at this differently. And this is a big part of what I do, Brad, and you probably do too, is help our clients understand how to talk to doctors, right? Because doctors are trained a certain way. But I said, Doc, if I came in here today, first time ever, you'd never seen me before, do I have anything in me that would make you prescribe me this drug? And he said, no, honestly, you don't. And I said, great, then let's knock it off. Let's get rid of it. If I start to go sideways and you tell me to get back on it, I will. But let's give it a shot. So, Brad, that was 18 years ago.
Oh, wow.
And in that 18 years, where I was supposed to have a shelf life of 5 to 10 years, and everything was getting worse, in that 18 years, I've never put the weight back on. I've never gone back into either diabetes or heart disease. I've been completely drug-free, even blood pressure and the cholesterol, for 18 years and counting. And I've got more energy, more life, more mobility. I'm doing things at 60 that I couldn't have dreamed of doing in my 30s. And in my 30s, I thought, like everybody else, this is just a part of getting older. In my freaking 30s, I thought that.
Yeah.
And then I'm 60 and playing like a kid and just loving life.
Well, yeah. And I'm just a little bit younger than you. And I refuse to think that. I just like everybody tells, oh, it's because you're getting older. And I'm like, no, I don't take that. I will not take that. So a couple of questions. Well, first I want to make an analogy. So I love how you mentioned that balance, to have the things that are going in your body that's good, but yet you were talking about a balance, the recipe, number 3, right? And that analogy to me is dehydration, or dehydration versus hypernatremia, right? And that is, and everybody thinks it's too much water, it's not enough water, right? But really what it is the relationship, it's the relationship of salt and water, right? Dehydration is not necessarily that you don't have enough water. It's that you don't have enough salt, an equal amount of salt to be able to absorb the water and let it stay inside of your body. Dehydration, just without the salt, it goes right through you and you can't keep it in your body. That's why you can drink and you can still end up being dehydrated. On the other hand, hypernatremia, too much water, is because you have too much salt and it's holding it inside of you and you're drowning. Basically, you're drowning. And that is a good analogy of what you were saying is number 3. There's got to be the right balance, the right recipe for you to do what you need to do. Now, I deal with hypernatremia and dehydration all the time. I live in Florida. and I train people in here in Florida. So June through August, I got to be very careful when I talk to my clients about what you're taking in while you're running, while you're biking, while you're all that stuff. So that's a big thing. I'm very curious about what you did to find the ins, what to take in, what not to take in, and the recipe for balance.
Yeah, and it's fascinating what you just say, too. This is one of these things which should be taught in high school, but we're not, right? Salt creates the barrier at your cells that mitigates how much water that goes into your cell. And having the right amount is critical for everything working. One of the reasons elevated salt, too much salt, is such a danger is the cells of your heart are constantly in motion. They're the only cells in your body that literally never slow down or stop. And because they're constantly in motion, everything works differently. The whole entire barrier. Salt is terrible for heart health. Excess salt. It's absolutely essential that we get some salt every day. One of the things I'm having to teach clients when they start eating real food instead of packaged food is, yes, you need to salt your food now. Your doctor told you don't salt your food, but that's because you were eating 5 times more than you needed already, right?
Right.
Now we need to start putting salt on your food to create that right mechanism so that your cells are able to use water they're supposed to. I'm glad you brought that one up. There were 2 things that were necessary in order for me to bridge this gap. And if you don't mind, before I share the recipe, and I want everybody to know what the food is. This isn't some proprietary secret sauce I'm not going to share. I want everybody to know the right way to eat. I want to share that with you, but there's another story if it's okay with you.
Oh, please. Yeah, I'm all about the stories.
Yeah, because the food wasn't enough. And I want to say that because I know how many of my clients suffer from this. I suffered from this. You might have experienced this somewhere along the way too and encountered it. And that's when we reach a point in our progress where we start getting emotional eating, we start getting cravings that are just absolutely insane. And when you start getting emotional eating, when I started getting emotional eating, it was followed very closely by a level of frustration that left me with overwhelm. Emotional eating and overwhelm is a really horrible 1-2 punch. And it was about maybe 4 to 6 months, somewhere in there, after my heart disease was gone. Now, during this period of time, I was super focused. And when you're super focused on anything, you treat it differently. You treat it with a level of priority. Once it's accomplished, then there's room for other things to start crowding in. So it was just a few months after this that I started getting hit with stress, and along with it, the cravings and emotional eating. And I started finding myself, even after having already received all the benefit from doing this, I'm disease-free. I've got the energy. The weight is gone. I'm loving everything about that. I still found myself unable to stop sometimes going to the things that gave me heart disease in the first place. And I started gaining some weight back, and it terrified me. It really terrified me because I know where that path leads. So in addition to getting the food right, I found I had to continue learning, to continue understanding, because if I didn't understand what was going on in me psychologically and emotionally, I was still going to lose this game. I was still going to wind up on the wrong end of it all. And I was still going to look at a shorter life than I wanted and not being able to live it. So I kept going down. There was a time, by the way, it's a hard story to tell, but I think it's important. There was a time when I was back on my couch and I was in this internal conversation, the voices in your head, right?
Yes.
And I had this question: do you really want to eat? I was looking at this thing I was going to have for dinner. I was being driven to have it. And I'm asking myself, do you really want to have a few choice words? I'll save your show the language, but do you really want to have this garbage? Not the words I used, but do you really want it? And I had this voice in my head that was giving me all the reasons that I didn't. You realize you just lost 125 pounds. You got a new lease on life. You've got everything going again. Part of your heart is dead from heart attacks, but it's still working better than it was before you had heart attacks. You've got all these things going on. did you really want to eat this crap? This is one side of my thinking. And on the other side, there was this voice that I could feel more than I could hear. But I knew perfectly well what it was saying. I'm here, Belldon, do you really want to eat that garbage? And this voice leaned in really close and said, "You damn right you do." And I found that voice, even though this one over here has all the logic and the reasons, I found that voice irresistible. And I did eat it. And when I went to bed, I cried myself to sleep because I remember thinking, if I can't win this, I don't have a chance. So I had to dive down those rabbit holes too, and I had to start learning. And what I learned from this is that we're not the diet and exercise. And we treat our health like it is. And diet and exercise are important. Don't mistake that. This doesn't work if we don't get the chemistry right.
Right.
But even if we get the chemistry right, but we're not aligned in our thoughts and our emotions, we're still going to fail. And I believe that this is the biggest health challenge today. If you go to the root cause, I believe that the biggest root cause in America is not understanding or knowing what to do. It's fighting the voices in your head and the emotional eating and the cravings and all of this going on psychologically. And people don't know how to beat it down. And while they're sitting here in the state of confusion, they don't want to talk about it because they feel ashamed and guilty if they don't have the inner fortitude to just eat the right thing. You can't go tell your friends this. And nobody is teaching them what to do with it. So the food has got to be right. It's physical laws. You cannot get them wrong and expect things to work. But at the same time, we're not seeking alignment of the body, mind, and spirit. And I don't mean this at all in the woo way. This and getting your thoughts in the right place, getting your emotions in the right place. And just like your body has physical rules that operate it, your mind and your emotion have rules that operate them too. And they're not that hard to get into alignment if you're actively learning how to do it and taking the steps instead of trying to pretend like it doesn't exist.
I think that's brilliant. And I love the way you put that because it makes me go back into some of the things that I've done myself and then some of the things my clients have done and things that I've told them, and you've put the words to it. But there's sometimes was like, okay, they get back from a hard, huge workout, things are sore, and they have to have recovery. There's a whole thing. You got to have recovery. We do our foam roller. We put on we've got these massage boots and all these things. Because now I'm talking about people that are running 2-3 hours at a time, right? Mm-hmm. So you got to sit there, and after you've refueled the right way, now all of a sudden you find yourself, you're sitting in an armchair. You've got these boots on that are like they're filling with air, then reducing, and then filling with air, and then reducing, and you're getting this great massage going, but you're watching TV or whatever. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, well, I've burned all these calories so I can go eat whatever I want. And I'm like, okay, but you've already refueled. You've done everything the right way. So when you reach for that, are you doing it because you need to? Or is it because you want to? And if you could search the reason or the idea between want and need, and you can sit there and say, well, you know what? I do want it, but I don't need it. My body does not need that, and it could put me back a few paces, right? That's when you need to make the decision for yourself. I can't make the decision for you. And a lot of people, and it's sedentary, it's a habit. We talk about habits all the time, but it's not necessarily that they're hungry. It's a habit. It's this habit. Just like they talk about smokers, right? When they start to think, it's not the fact that they really need that nicotine, or even that some of them are even addicted to the nicotine. It's this habit is they got to have something with their hands. And I'm like, then you got to find something else to do with your hands. So, but I think that's amazing the way you put it as far as getting the mind aligned, because we know that stress causes cortisol in infusion, right? Which messes with am I thinking of? Sugar and insulin. Messes with insulin and could cause phantom hunger pains, and you don't really need it. So having that mind aligned, knowing what to do when those emotions hit to keep you on your recipe, and we'll call it that. I think it's a great thing, on your recipe of eating and eating, exercise, sleep, mindset. Then that's where you win the battle.
Yeah, and I love the way there that you're walking people into mindfulness. You're walking people into taking the moment to actually make a decision instead of just habitually walking into what you've always done, right? There was a great study that was done in the Vietnam days that was an eye-opener to me about so many things. During Vietnam, with all this like crazy stuff going on, an unusual, like a crazy number of soldiers became addicted to heroin. And when they came back, they're having all these problems because they're heroin addicts now. So the Department of Defense, it's important to know that this is the Department of Defense, because when the DoD does something, they do it exactly the same everywhere. There's no variation whatsoever, right? So they created this rehabilitation program here stateside, and they did the exact same rehab program from that point forward to soldiers in Vietnam before they came home to try and get rid of the problem before they came back. And what they found was this, and this baffled psychologists for decades. What they found was this: the soldiers that rehabbed in America went back home, and over 95% of them relapsed back into heroin use. Less than a 5% success rate. Now, following the exact same program, the soldiers that were rehabbed in Vietnam came back here. Now get this, because it's a complete flip-flop. It was like Trump and Hillary right at the beginning of the election where everything flip-flopped, right? When they came back home, their success rate was higher than 90%.
Interesting.
So the same program, the ones rehabbed here, 95% failure rate, coming back from Vietnam, 90% success rate. And this was studied for a decade, and they came down to just one difference between these two groups of people. The people rehabbed here had already made associations between their drug and their environment before they went into rehab. And after rehab, they came back into the environment that had already been connected with their habit. The guys that were rehabbed in Vietnam came back to an entirely new environment where they hadn't made those connections yet, and they were able to hang on to being drug-free. Now think about that in harmony with what you're saying, because we tend to sit down in a chair, pick up something habitually, pick up a cigarette habitually, pick up food habitually, and we don't think about it. It's already woven into our environment. So we have to do something like you're talking about there. We have to do something to create an interrupt that will force us to think. Because when we think, we can make decisions. When we're not thinking, we don't. We run on autopilot. So I love what you're saying there about bringing that mindfulness element into it, how important that is to people being able to make meaningful change.
It's interesting because you know where I got that from, because it actually came from a physical, when people are running. And I was like, okay, you're in this race and you're going, and all of a sudden you're feeling tired and you want to slow down or you want to take a walk break. And I tell them the same thing. Before you take that walk break, before you make the absolute 100% decision, you need to ask yourself, do I want to walk or do I need to walk? And that's where everything else came from when I got to the nutrition side of it. And I thought, wow, this works for everything. And I tell them the same thing. I says, before you make that the final decision, you ask yourself that. Do you want to or do you need to? Hey, there's times when you're cramping, something's killing you, or your cardiovascular system is way out of whack and you need a reset. That's a need. Yes, that's when you say, yes, I'm going to walk for 25 seconds. I'm going to walk for 30 seconds. I'm going to get myself reset and I'm going to restart. Fine, no problem. You know what I mean? If you actually need to. But more than half the time, they're doing it. It's just because things are a little uncomfortable. So if you push through, and 9 times out of 10, you push through the uncomfortableness, you'll go back into a rhythm, and your rhythm will take over, and you'll be right back to where you were before, and you'll keep going.
Oh, yeah. All you need is that moment to make a decision, to think.
Right. Yeah. So I think, and that's brilliant. It absolutely is brilliant. I want the recipe. Hold on, let's go back. You talked about you talked about what you felt was that right recipe as far as the food part goes.
Yeah, let me run through it, but let me also say, this is free to the world. I want everybody in the world to know what to do to put the right things in their body to build it strong. So on my website, paragraph 3 on the front page, anybody can download it because you're going to forget what I say here. But there's 4 groups that I categorized food. In the very beginning, when I started learning what the body needs, where that stuff can be found, where these nutrients are, where those nutrients are, how to get this mineral, and how to put all of this together to where we create the right recipe in our body. When I was first walking through this, it was impossibly complex. You think counting calories and macros is hard? Try counting all of your nutrients and minerals and phytonutrients and everything.
I can't even imagine.
So what I set out to do, and it took a bit of work, but it was so worth it, was to create a very simple way where people could get the right things in, the wrong things out, and get the right balance easily. In fact, you take 3 days to learn this, and you'll never have to actually think about it again. And today I call the system the 4 jars because it's easier to visualize. Back then it was just 4 groups. But these are the jars. The first jar is dark leafy greens. Doesn't matter if I like them or not. I love when people say, I can't stand those. I'm like, do you like the 32 medicines that you're taking?
Yeah.
No, exactly. I don't like those either. Well, you take them every day. So take these every day and just think of them as your medicine and you'll be fine, right? 85% of what the body needs to build itself properly, 85% of those building blocks exist in dark leafy greens. You cannot afford to skip these. 85% of the nutrients that your body needs. Now, I'm not talking volume. I'm talking in terms of the different unique things that you need to have. So we put those in their own jar. That's the dark leafy green jar. We make sure we get those every day. The second jar is fibrous vegetables. And these are the vegetables that when you chew them up, they leave strings in your mouth. This kind of fiber is critical. This is what acts like the rotor-rooter of your body and keeps you scoured out. Now, when you think about it, the cell wall of your intestine, most of the way, is 1 cell thick. The reason it's only 1 cell thick is because all of your nutrients need to permeate through that to get into your bloodstream and to get into your body. So as you're eating things, everything's breaking down, the nutrients are being gathered, they go through that cell wall. It doesn't take much in the way to prevent food from being able to be absorbed. And we're learning more and more as time goes on. You don't have to listen to the news very long to hear the new connections that are being made between gut health and the health of the rest of our body, mentally, physically, in every way. And it's important that we do this. So we give those their own jars so that we make sure we're getting those daily. The third jar and the fourth jar have to play together. And this is important. There's so much debate about which is better. Do I want to be vegan or do I want to be keto or caveman or paleo, right? Should I ignore meat or should I ignore carbs, which is to ignore vegetables? And this is the debate. And the answer is we're omnivores. We're not carnivores. We're not herbivores. We're omnivores. And the closer we adhere to the way that we're made, the better the body is going to work. And I can give 100 reasons why carbohydrates and proteins need each other in your body. But for now, suffice it to say that not only do they need each other, but they need to stay in balance. So we need non-processed carbohydrates. Forget all this nonsense about simple and complex. There are thousands of levels of complexity when you put all your carbs together. The dividing line was drawn by Congress, not by food scientists. Let's just shelf that. And instead, let's say, eat real, honest, whole food carbs and avoid factory processed carbs. Okay? Same thing with proteins. We want to make sure that our proteins are coming from real whole meat sources, not from pepperoni and sausage and processed meats versus, right? So we need non-processed carbohydrates is jar number 3. Non-processed proteins is jar number 4. And if we keep these 4 jars and we divide food that way, you can literally go anywhere in the world and you look at food you've never seen before and immediately know which jar it goes into. If it's a plant and it's not a dark leafy green, or if it doesn't leave strings in my mouth, it goes in the carb jar. No brainer. We know where our meats go. They go into our protein jar. So it's really easy to know how to divide food no matter where you go. Even when you're sitting in a restaurant and you're looking at what's on your plate, it's really easy to know how to divide it up just by saying, these are the 4 jars I need. Do they exist on my plate? So this is how we get the right thing in. How do we keep the wrong thing out? Well, I was going to make a blanket statement and somebody can jump up and argue with me if they want it. It cannot exist without a factory. If it cannot exist without a factory, let's just not put it in the body. And we'll be doing a pretty good job of keeping the wrong things out. So we got the right things in and we got the wrong things out. And then we're left with the recipe or the balance. Now, when you download this guide, you're going to get a basic, this is how humans work. This is the human diet. There's a lion diet, a snake diet, a rhino diet. Let's stop pretending that there's not a human diet. There is. And the balance of that human diet exists there. But that's where we want to land. That's where we want to wind up with a healthy body. We're all walking into this differently. We're all walking into this, some of us on these medications, some of us on those medications, some of us on no medications, some of us overstressed, some of us underslept, and all of these things affect the chemistry of our body. So where we're starting out might be slightly different from person to person. The 4 jars are the same, but the recipe might change a little bit from person to dial in the beginning and then move towards what the human diet looks like. And that's how we achieve the right recipe or the right balance. It's simply by how much we take out of each jar each day. So 3 cups here, cup here, 6 ounces there. Carbohydrates are all over the place. That's why the guide is important, because carb density varies so much from food to food to food. So they're all over the place. But you look at that and you're like, okay, I know exactly how much to take out of each of these jars to get the recipe right. And I'm going to make sure my cake has the right balance of sugar and salt. And then, boom, it's done. And then comes the challenge. Then comes the emotional eating and overwhelm. So I've created something that I call Club Lit that I designed just for these problems, just to help people get the mental and the emotional balance that we need, the mind and the spirit to go with the body, to very simply be able to put emotional eating in the rearview mirror. And after we get the food right, if anybody wants help on that, happy to help.
So to start just wrapping this up, so Club Lit stands for life on its terms. I love that. Where did you come up with that?
I came up with that starting with the analogy that we talked about a little while ago, gravity. I love gravity because nobody argues with it. Nobody. Nobody says we're going to have a cheat day. Nobody says stepping off the edge of the cliff is okay as long as you only do it in moderation. Nobody says that, right? In fact, most people say, let's stand back a few feet in case a gust of wind comes along, just to make extra sure, right?
Perfect.
But does that mean we can't fly? No, it doesn't mean that at all. But flying isn't ignoring gravity. Flying is using gravity and balancing it with lift. Because without gravity, we'd go spinning off into space, and without lift, we'd go crashing to the earth. So we've learned how to use gravity and lift and to balance them in order to achieve flight, and now we can fly. So first we have to meet life on its terms. We are going to obey the physical laws at play, and then we can actually live life on our terms. We can freaking fly. But we don't fly by ignoring the laws. We fly by living within those laws. So we need to do the same thing with body. We need to do the same thing with how we manage our thoughts. We need to do the same thing with how we control our emotions, because all of these things have universal laws that apply to them. And if we'll meet life on those terms and stop pretending that they don't exist, or stop pretending that they don't apply to me, or stop pretending that they apply to everybody differently. If we meet life on its terms, we can do whatever we want to do by using those laws, not by ignoring them.
It's really not the opposite, but it's placing the emphasis on the second sentence of the Serenity Prayer. And I always talk about the Serenity Prayer because of the first part, which says, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. We accept gravity for what it is, and we know we can't. Doesn't mean we can't use it, but we place the emphasis not there, which is where it's tended to be emphasized in the addiction side, but the second sentences, which is, grant me the courage to change the things I can. Right?
And that last one is so important.
And the wisdom to know the difference. Right. So, and you're exactly right, because people might, when they really think about that, and on the addiction side, and I understand why that's there, is the grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. And then you're like, we go into this emotional eating, right? But you can, right? And that's the wisdom, right? Right there is, oh, wait, you're emotional, and that becomes the eating, but you can control that. You might not be able to control the emotion at that point, but you can control what you do with it, or you could take advantage of it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Which I always talk about with some of my clients and stuff. And somebody calls me and says, oh man, I had the most rotten day. I feel bad. I had a Murphy morning. I said, don't talk to me. You get out and run. And they come back and they're like, oh, I feel much better now. I'm like, yeah.
Exactly.
Right. You couldn't control the emotion, but if you use the emotion as fuel for a workout, for a walk, for a journal entry, for something else that's not food, now you're using it to your advantage.
Yeah.
Right.
And in line with that, I once heard an interview with a Japanese dance instructor, and as a trainer, you're gonna relate to this immediately. He said, someone comes into my dance studio, they're going to do this step 1,000 times exactly like this. If they do it any other way, we're going to have a problem, and they're going to start all over. They're going to do it 1,000 times just like this, not because I want them to never be free, but because if they're free too early, they're going to go break their leg. They don't understand how it all works. Once they've done this 1,000 times, now they can go improvise, and they're going to do beautiful dance steps in completely harmonious fashion that's not going to risk them. It's going to be beautiful and entertaining to everybody. That's going to completely change the norm of dance. But you got to do that one thing first, right? And it's the same kind of thing. These are the rules of how it works. Once we do that, then you can live life however you want to live it successfully.
Absolutely. Are you a fan of motivational movies that maybe are not as intelligent as you might think? Like,
so it depends. It depends.
Yeah. So the Rocky movies.
Rocky was great.
Okay. So what you just said, as far as the anecdote with the Japanese dancer, I love Rocky too. And Mickey is like, come on, Rock, we got to change it up. You're going to fight right-handed. And he ties the rope around him, and he's like, all right, you're going to hit 500 times. 500 times. 1, 2. Where did I go again? And do it again. 3. And that was also that it was going to be fluid when he went to the right hand. Now he's fighting right-handed, where he was always a southpaw. And so, it was an anecdote that I kept thinking about it. But because of the motivational aspect of that movie, I had to just throw that in there real quick.
Andrew's great. That was the first one, but greatest scene ever.
Oh, yeah. That one in Rocky IV, the ending of Rocky IV. And it's like, as I was in here and I was listening and I first got here, you were not my greatest fan and I didn't like yous neither. But as we were in here killing ourselves, I started seeing some changing. the ways yous felt about me and the ways I's felt about you.
Oh, yeah.
I can't help it. That's just the greatest, some of the greatest stuff. You know what I mean?
All the way through, right on through Creed. They were great.
Right. Yeah. So if you're emotional and you need to pick me up, throw in Rocky if you can't do anything else.
Amen.
Absolutely. So Belldon, I have to tell you that this has been absolutely amazing. Belldon has BelldonColme.net, and he's got some amazing stuff on there. He talks all about Club Lit. He's got a little bit of more of a background about some of the stuff that we talked about. His first book, No One Ever Got Fat from Calories, is you've got a link on there for Amazon. We're also going to put that in the show notes along with his BelldonColme.net. And you've got a new book coming out.
Mm-hmm.
Undo Type 2. Kick the diabetes habit for good. You want to give us a little introduction to what that's going to be about? Well, not that the title doesn't say most of it, but...
Yeah, type 2 diabetes has got a special place in my heart for helping people because type 2, I call it a gateway disease. If you get type 2 diabetes, you are going to get everything else. You are probably going to die from heart disease, but not until you've got kidney problems, you've got blindness, you've got all this other stuff ravaging your body on the way. It is the fastest growing disease in the world. And yet, while it's the fastest growing disease in the world, it is also the easiest to prevent. And it's the easiest, whatever word you want to use, reverse, put into remission. I use the word undo so I don't have to argue about it. But the point is you can live diabetes free. You can get rid of it, you can avoid it, and yet it's the fastest growing disease in the world. And so this book is designed to do the two things that we keep being told we can't do. One is we don't know what causes it. We do know what causes it. And we keep being told it can't be reversed, and yet I did. And thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people like me have, both people I've helped and people that did it in other ways and on their own. Now, put all of that in your head and realize that by next year, 50% of the U.S. population is going to have some form of diabetes, type 1, type 2, or prediabetes. Now, with type 1, we have a different set of circumstances, but with type 2 and prediabetes, you do not have to live with these things. And so this book is designed to be an A to Z book, how to turn it around nutritionally, how to get the food and drink right, how to get the emotional state right, how to get your mind in the right place. The book is a 1, 2, 3 guide to get you to the point where you can live diabetes free. And the goal of my business partners and I is to see a world in our lifetime that has negative diabetes growth. And if we can see that just 1 year, we'll have done our part to make a change in the world that really matters.
And that is going to be one of the most important books of the decade. So I cannot wait for that to come out. And he has got a landing page on there for you to get you on the list. So check that out. And that's BelldonColme.net/books. Or if you go to the homepage, you'll see it at the top. And it tells you how to get into Club Lit. It's a fantastic website. It's actually put together very well. So it's almost worth just going over and looking at it. You know, that's coming from an IT guy that deals with this stuff all the time. So it's very clean. It does.
Go there and meet Spark. If you don't go there for any other reason than to meet Spark, go to the website that you can meet Spark the Lit Rabbit. And if you're worried about how to spell my name and you want to jump on here right now and you don't want to take the time to watch the show notes, which I recommend you do, watch Brad 100 times. But follow thelitrabbit.com. We'll get you there too.
Oh, cool. Follow thelitrabbit.com. I love it. That's fantastic. So I'll go in the show notes as well, just so, because it's fun. I love that. Follow litrabbit.com. All right, Belldon, it's been an honor and a privilege and very educational. So thank you. Thank you so much for chatting with me and being on the show, because I think it's extremely important what you're doing.
Thank you, Brad. And I feel the same about what you're doing and the dent you're making in the world. So I hope we get a chance to do this again.
Yeah, same here. And for everybody else, thank you for listening. Don't forget to share, like if you're on YouTube, give it a little review if you'd like. And then we'll see you in the next one.